Hello, my fellow supports, HotRod08 here, and welcome to Support Patch Notes 8.16, where I will be going over the changes that affect support champions for each patch during Season 8, as well as providing a place for you guys to discuss the changes below. Now, before we get into this video, just to give you a heads up, this week's support game review entries are now open. If you'd like to submit one of your games to possibly be reviewed this coming up Monday, click the link at the top right corner of this video for all of the information you will need. Now let's get started. So these support patch notes are split into two different sections. The first section is just going to be specifically on the buffs and nerfs that are coming to each champion, items, and runes. And the second section is going to be discussing all of the changes afterwards. We're going to be starting off tonight with our champion changes, starting with Rakan, who is receiving a nerf to both his health and his armor. His base health is going to be lowered from 510 health to 480 health, and his base armor is going to be decreased from 36 to 33. Our next champion on this list is going to be Leona, who is receiving a buff to her W, her Eclipse. The cooldown is going to be decreased from 14 seconds to all ranks to 14 to 10 seconds from rank 1 to 5. And then our next support champion we're going to talk about is Nautilus, who is receiving a change to his overall kit on his W. So instead of the base shield being from 65 to 85, now it's going to be from 60 to 100. His shield scaling is going to be decreased from 9 to 17% maximum health to 9 to 13% maximum health. The duration is going to be decreased from 10 seconds to 6 seconds. And finally, the cooldown is going to be decreased from 18 seconds to 12 seconds. Our last champion change for this patch is coming to Tahm Kench, who is receiving an overall nerf to his kit. First, his Q, his Tongue Lash, is going to be decreased the slow duration from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, and the cooldown is going to be decreased from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. And then on his W ability, his Devour and Regurgitate, the Devour duration is going to be decreased from 4 seconds to 6 seconds to just 4 seconds at all ranks. The cooldown is going to be increased from 14 to 10 seconds to 28 to 16 seconds. And then he has a new ability called Yummy, which means that his cooldown is halved if you use it on an enemy champion as opposed to an ally, and the cost is getting reduced from 90 mana to 60 mana. Next, we're going to be talking about the rune changes that are affecting supports this patch. Now, the whole change to runes are going to be lowering the damage that most of the runes put out as the game goes on and as the burst damage they put out. So we're going to be listing these all together. We're just going to go down the list real quick. Starting off with Summon Aery, the base damage is getting decreased from 15 to 40 to 10 to 40, but the base shielding is being increased from 30 to 80 to 35 to 80. Next on the list is going to be Celerity, which is going to be getting a nerf. The attack damage conversion is going to be lower from 9.6% to 6%, and the ability power bonus is going to be decreased from 16% to 10%. Next one we're going to talk about is going to be coming to Cheap Shot, which the base damage has been decreased from 15 to 40 to 8 to 40. And then finally, the last rune is going to be Scorch, which the base damage is going to be decreased from 20 to 60 to 10 to 30. But the cooldown is going to also be decreased from 20 seconds to 10 seconds. Our final change coming to this patch for tonight is going to be coming to the Summoner spell Heal, which is going to be getting a buff. Its cooldown is going to be decreased from 270 seconds to 240 seconds. So those are all the changes that are be coming to support for this patch. Now we can get into the discussion of each of these changes that are going to be coming. The first thing we're going to be talking about is the nerfs that are going to be coming to Rakan. I have already done a video on this just because it irked me so much. If you want to see that video, I'll put a link in the top right corner of this video you can click on. But basically, the nerfs really aren't that hard on Rakan. It's not going to hurt him a lot. A 30 less health and 3 less armor isn't game breaking by any means. It's just a little bit annoying that they keep nerfing him several times within like the last couple months. I feel like he's in a pretty good spot for the vast majority of elos, and I feel like they are nerfing him just for the LCS and not necessarily solo queue plays. But as I said, it's not going to be groundbreaking. He's still going to be viable by every means necessary. Heading down the list, we're going to discuss our Leona changes, the buffs coming to your W. Now, in the very early game, the buffs from 14 seconds at all ranks to 14 to 10 seconds, you aren't really going to feel that buff. But once you get into the mid game, since you are most likely leveling up your W first in those team fights, it actually is going to be noticeable to have that cooldown lowered. Instead of possibly only being able to use your W once or twice at the most in any single team fight or a long gated skirmish, now you actually might be able to use it up to 3 times, just because that cooldown is lowered by 4 seconds by the time you get it maxed out rank 5. So with Leona gaining even more durability and more damage output after it does explode, it is going to help her once you hit that middle game. Next thing we're going to talk about is going to be Nautilus. His changes to his W is interesting. So basically what they're doing is they're nerfing the first time that you use the ability, just because you're overall going to have a lower shield by 4% lower by maximum rank than it is currently, from 17% to 13%. But kind of the same with Leona, where Leona's cooldown was at 14 seconds. They're lowering the cooldown from 18 seconds to 12 seconds. So even though the duration is also going to be lowered, usually when you are playing Nautilus, they already burst that shield within that 10 seconds anyway. So I don't think that the duration nerf is going to really hurt him a lot. I think if a team fight is elongated, I think it's actually going to be a buff for him, just because he's going to be able to use his W ability more often. But if it's just a really quick skirmish and people die really fast and you're only able to use that ability once in a team fight, it is definitely going to be a nerf, just because the overall shield for the one time you do use it is going to be less than if you're able to use it multiple times. Next change we're going to get to as our last champion is going to be Tahm Kench. I don't understand why they just continue nerfing this guy too. It's not like his solo Q win rate is pretty abysmal at the moment. It's nothing that he's just absolutely dominated by any means. I think this is yet again another like LCS change. It's nice that they lowered the cooldown of his Q ability from 6 to 5 seconds, but they did also lower that slow duration by half a second, so that's kind of annoying. His Devour, I think the point of it is that they're wanting you to be more aggressive with it. If you use it on an enemy champion, the cooldown is halved, so you can use it. Sometimes if you level it up, you're actually going to be able to use it more often if you're constantly eating enemy champions. But if you use it on an ally at rank 1, it's a 28-second cooldown on that W ability. I can't even think of another normal ability in the game that's not ultimate that's on that long of a cooldown. So if you're using it in order to protect your allies, it's going to be on a really, really long cooldown. You have to really focus on getting cooldown reduction on Tahm Kench now, just because that's going to be absolutely ridiculous. But it actually will be an overall tiny bit of a buff if you're going to be really aggressive with it. But the majority of the time you are swallowing your allies and protecting them, so it's going to really hurt him. I just don't see why they're doing that to him. Going on to our rune changes, as I said earlier, these are all based on lowering some of the damage that's in the game, which I'm all for. I feel like there's way too many burst champions in the game, so I'm glad that they're lowering some of the damage on the runes. First one is Summon Aery. It's not that bad of a change. Just at the very beginning of the game, you're going to have 5 less base damage that is getting poked out. But for support champions specifically, that extra 5 shielding at rank 1 is actually going to be nice. So you're not going to be able to poke enemy champions down as hard with Aery anymore, but you will be able to protect your allies a little bit better early with that 5 extra shielding. So it's going to be, as I said, lower damage output. It's going to be better shields. Next one is going to be Celerity, which is actually a pretty disgusting nerf, but I think that it's warranted just because there's so many champions out there that really use Celerity well and get a lot of extra stats just off of a rune that gave movement speed. So I think that percentage nerf to both the attack damage and the ability power that you would get from it, from the speed, is warranted. As there's too much damage in the game, and I think 6%, 10% is a lot more reasonable than 9.6% AD extra, and then 16% bonus AP per 100 movement speed. Next one is going to be Cheap Shot, which at the later ranks is going to be the exact same, but earlier game, it's almost cut in half at level 1 from 15 damage to 8 damage. So the earlier game, you're just going to be doing less poke damage whenever you do get that Cheap Shot off, but as the game scales, it'll go back up to normal. So later on in the game, it's still going to put out some decent damage. If you actually do take Cheap Shot just the early game, it's going to be less damage. And then finally, kind of the same as the other runes, Scorch. The base damage is going to be decreased by half. Lower ranks and higher ranks is going to be halved at every single point from 20 to 60 to 10 to 30. But the cooldown is also getting decreased by half. So if you're poking enemy champions often, it's actually going to be the same amount of damage. It's just not going to be as strong of like burst damage, because if you're hitting an enemy champion every 10 seconds, you're going to have the exact same amount of damage output with the Scorch. It's just it takes double the hits to actually get that same damage now with this change, as opposed to it has been in the past. Our final discussion piece for tonight is coming to the summer spell Heal. Now, usually support champions don't take Heal, it's usually their AD carries that do, but with Heal originally being 4.5 minutes long and Barrier only being on a 3-minute cooldown, it's been a lot more enticing for AD carries to take Barrier as opposed to Heal. And Barrier doesn't really help you at all either. It only helps the AD carry out, so you don't get the movement speed or the heal that summer spell Heal would actually give you. So with it being on a 30-second shorter cooldown, it's going to be a lot more enticing for AD carries to start picking up Heal again, as well as if you need to be a really defensive lane with your AD carry taking Barrier and you yourself taking Heal. That 30 seconds shorter cooldown can mean a big difference, since it's going to be up a lot faster than you would have to originally wait. And that's going to be it for the Support Patch Notes 8.16. What do you think of the changes? Do you enjoy the changes that are coming to this patch or not? Leave a comment in the comment section below. I would love to hear your opinions on the matter. If you're enjoying my content and want to consider supporting the channel, head over to my Patreon. There you can enjoy perks such as early releases of some of my videos, having me look at your op.gg and giving you suggestions, and having your name shout out at the end of my videos like these lovely people here who are already contributing to the channel. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, I feature support-focused League of Legends content that I release on a weekly basis. Would love your support. I've also started stream on YouTube on Mondays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to watch a high-elo support player play League of Legends and answer your questions live and teach you how to play support better, head over to one of my streams. I would love to have you there. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, as it really helps me out, and hit that notification bell next to the subscribe button to keep up the latest content that I release. But, rather than that, you guys have a great day today. Thanks much.